Hey everyone, my name's Matt and welcome back to Cobb Hill Farms. It's been a little while since I've done a video on the channel about Stacy's 1950 Farmall H. Give a little backstory to some of the newer viewers out there that may not have watched some of the previous videos on this. But Stacy bought this tractor in 2019. She was taking it to tractor shows and such. That was before her and I even met. Well, back in October, I decided that I would do a restoration on it for her. It's part of a wedding gift for her. The tractor was pretty tired. The motor was shot. I mean, it was smoke like a chimney. It just needed a good paint job. It had a kind of a rattle can slash paintbrush paint job on it. That's just not my style. So I said, you know what, it'd be a nice wedding present for her. So in October, before I started the YouTube channel, I started tearing this thing all down, got it down into pieces, and then slowly been doing step-by-steps on putting this thing back together. Well, the wedding's coming up in 38 days, and you see what I have to work with. A lot of this, the lack of progress is my own doing. I spent a lot of time this past winter when the weather was really nice outside and we weren't getting snow, working on the pasture project, when I probably should have been in here working on this. So I got nobody to blame but myself, but we're in a place right now where we can get a lot done in a short period of time, because we got the engine back from the machine shop. The machinist confirmed pretty much what I had already known. This motor was pretty tired. The crankshaft was sent to another machine shop that still had capabilities of turning the journals down. The main journals were turned 20 thousandths, and so were the rod journals. So we're gonna leave the crank in the bag until we're ready to put it in the motor. So let's see here, we got a bench full of new parts. First thing here, we got brand new lifters that go in the motor. This is what the camshaft rides against to push on the push rod that opens the valves. We got brand new rod bearings. So the piston and sleeve kit we have for this motor is a stock overbore kit for a C152 Farmall H engine. It's a 3 7/16 inch bore. The pistons are a fire crater design. So they have a dome on top that is supposed to help increase horsepower, but they also have a crater in here that is also supposed to help create horsepower by creating a pocket for the air fuel mixture to migrate to, and then it lines up with the spark plug and it's supposed to help create a bigger bang inside the motor. So it's supposed to help create horsepower. We're not building this tractor for tractor pulling or anything like that. It's just, you know, we might as well make as much power with it with the stock components as we possibly can. So we got brand new pistons with pins and bushings on our old rods. Everything's all good here. And then we got the head all done as well. He decked the head, took I think 15 or 20 thousandths off it to true it up. We had brand new valves, new guides, springs, keepers, everything to go with this head. So the head has been done just like the rest of the motor. So I'm not kidding you when I say we're gonna about have a brand new motor when we're all said and done here. So before I really tear into this, putting this thing together, first thing I did was the machinist took this cover off to gain access to the coolant passages in and around the bores for the pistons. Flushed everything all out, got everything all clean. So I went through, cleaned up the gasket surface, put a new gasket, put some Permatex on here, high tack, and glued it down. So that part is done. Before I put the crankshaft in, I want to put these lifters in. And finally, the last one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the main bearings in on the block. We're going to start with the center one. This is the thrust bearing. It has a thrust surface. It controls the end play of the crankshaft end to end. Now note, you have a hole in the bearing for the oil galley. There's a oil galley right here. The oil comes through and lubricates the crankshaft. So we're going to put that one in and locate that one correctly. And we're going to come down here and do number one. And same thing, you got to line up the oil galley. Get the last bearing put in. There's the bearings, all looks good. So now I'm going to try to set the crankshaft down in here. See how everything fits. Seems like it fits pretty good. As far as the crankshaft caps go, same idea, same principle. There's a cutout in the end of the cap for the notch on the bearing. You just got to line those up. These don't have an oil galley hole, so the most critical part is lining up the tab to make sure you have it right. And we'll do number 3 main bearing cap. So now we're ready to check the bearing clearance on the main bearing caps, make sure we're within tolerance. And I didn't realize they didn't have any plastic gauge, so I had to run out to Napa and get some quick. So while I was there, I actually got both range thicknesses that they offer. They offer a 1 to 3 thousandths is green and 2 to 6 thousandths, which is red. I don't really think I'm gonna need the red. I don't think I've ever used it before, but it was like $3. So I said, well, it cost me more in fuel to get there if I needed it than it would be just to buy it and put it on the shelf. So we're gonna open this up and get these bearings checked. I'll lay a piece across this journal. Number 1 bearing cap. Now it is kind of important here to make sure you don't turn the crankshaft while you're doing this process, because otherwise you'll get false readings. Well, we got number 1 on, 2 on. Torquing these to 75 foot-pounds, that's what the book says. And start in the center and work your way out. And again, you want to make sure you don't turn the crankshaft because you'll get false readings. Now we'll take the handy dandy measuring tool on here and measure the thickness of how far it's been crushed. It looks like we're somewhere between the 2 to 3 thousandths range. Well, we're a little bit wider than 3. Yeah, we look more like 2 over here, so that looks pretty good. 2 range there, so we're definitely right in the middle of spec. That's perfect. Well, according to the plastic gauge, we're within spec, so we're going to take the crankshaft back out. Set that on the bench for the time being. And we're going to lube up some bearing surfaces. I try to be as clean as possible in assembling engines, wiping grease off, trying to, you know, make sure there's no dirt or anything like that, because any little debris can score a bearing. Yeah, we'll put the crankshaft down in for the final time. Being careful not to nick or score anything. Feels good there. And just like before, we'll put some engine assembly lube on. I'm going to start with the center thrust bearing. So just as the same as we did when we were checking them, we'll start in the center. Haha, look at that. Now for the tedious task of running the wire through each one of these bolt heads to tie the bolts together so they don't loosen up. All right, so I moved on from the crankshaft. I got the timing cover backing plate mounted and installed. One point of reference to note with that is behind the camshaft gear is 2 mounting bolts for this backing plate. Right there is one of those bolts with the tab, you can see it there. What I ended up doing, and the other one is right there, I left those bolts loose so those tabs would move, so when I go to put the camshaft in all the way, the 2-bolt mounting plate for the camshaft that holds the camshaft in from coming in and out, everything was able to clear. Now I can go through these holes and tighten all those bolts up. The other thing I had to do is, if you look, and I'll rotate it this way, here's my 2 timing marks. One dot on the tooth of the crankshaft, the other dot between the teeth on the timing gear. Now we're probably to my most favorite part of an engine build, and that's putting the piston and connecting rods in. These are the parts that make the magic happen, right? So the machine shop attached the pistons to the connecting rods for me, new pins, bushings, clips. They also installed the rings. This has 3 compression rings and an oil ring. So we're gonna get these put in. Well, first thing we gotta do is smear a bunch of this engine assembly lube all over the rings. It's like putting frosting on a cake. Probably doesn't taste the same though. I'm going to rotate the crankshaft so that the #1 rod journal is all the way down at the bottom of its stroke. These pistons are labeled. It says front with an arrow going that way. We're going to see if we can get this piston to go down in. Look at that. Now I rotated the engine over. I'm going to pull the rod up to the crank just to make sure I don't nick the crank. There. Now we're going to do the same thing with the rod journals that we did with the main journals. We're going to plastic gauge them. See if I can get this to stay on here. Put our cap on. Well, we'll set the torque wrench for 40 foot-pounds, because that's what the book calls for. Yeah, it's between 0.015 and 0.02. So we look pretty good. Well, now that everything looks like it's good with this one, we'll put a little engine assembly lube on the bearing. And we'll put the rest of the vanilla cake frosting on this cap bearing. Oh, we're going to put the bolts in, but however, I'm not going to torque them to spec yet because I need to order some more parts. And one of the parts I need to order is these new locking tabs that you bend up around the bolt head, and that keeps them from backing out. So for right now, we're just going to put these in and kind of snug them up. Then I can always, once I get the clips, I can do it again later. Hey, she rotates over nice. .5. Oh, helps if you go to the English side and not the metric side. 2000s right on the dot. I gotta say one thing. I've done a lot of business with this machine shop over the years, both personally and with different employers I've had. And it's really good to have faith in the machine shop you use, because I almost don't question anything because I've never had any problems with anything they've ever done for me. That's awesome. Well, I think this is where we're gonna call it a night. Well, I definitely feel like we made some progress on this today in about 5-6 hours time. Next step's gonna be putting the head on, putting the rocker shaft on, and setting the valve train. And then we gotta put the oil pump in, but can't put the oil pan on yet until I order those locking rings for the connecting rods. So we'll have to pull those bolts back out, put them in, retorque them. We got a long ways to go. Now we got 37 days till this needs to be a running rollable tractor. So there's gonna be a lot to do, a lot I'm not gonna film, but I'll try to make as many videos about this as I can, but in the end I just need to get it done. So we got some more farm work to do as well. We got hay to do here at some point whenever the weather straightens out. It's been on and off rain. 1 minute the sun's shining, 5 minutes later it's clouding up, and then there's rain falling. So it's hard to do anything kind of hay related with that kind of weather. We got baby broilers showing up tomorrow. Another round. I think this will be batch number 5 so far for the year. Things have been going really well at the farmers market. So if you enjoy the mechanical video, give it a thumbs up. If you like our channel, as always, we ask you to subscribe. We hope you have a great day. See you next time.